11 seconds. That's how long it took Bruce Lee to shatter the ego of a 300-pound giant from a Hollywood script. Size was everything. What happened in that dimly lit boxing gym in 1972 became one of Muhammad Ali's favorite stories to tell. A moment so shocking that even the greatest himself couldn't believe his own eyes. This isn't another Bruce Lee legend whispered in martial arts circles. This is a documented story that Ali shared in private conversations, later brought to light through Shannon Lee's Instagram posts and confirmed by those who were actually there. The truth, as it often does, turned out to be far more extraordinary than any fiction. The gym was called Big Mike's Boxing Palace, a sweat-soaked sanctuary in Los Angeles where serious fighters came to test their limits. Big Mike Johnson, the owner, was an imposing figure, 6'5", 140 kilograms of muscle and attitude, with fists like sledgehammers and a reputation for never backing down from anyone. He had sparred with some of the biggest heavyweights of his era, and his gym bore the marks of countless battles, cracked leather bags, bloodstains on the mat, and walls covered with photographs of champions. Muhammad Ali trained there from time to time, drawn by Big Mike's no-nonsense approach and the quality of sparring partners. It was one of those rare places where ego was supposed to be left at the door, where only your skills spoke for you. But on this particular autumn afternoon, something was different. Bruce Lee arrived at Big Mike's gym with a mutual friend, a stuntman who had worked on several films and knew both the martial arts world and the boxing community. Bruce was in Los Angeles, working on the project that would become his breakthrough, and had expressed interest in studying how boxers moved, how they generated power, how they thought in the ring. Big Mike had heard the name Bruce Lee. Everyone had by then. But hearing about someone and seeing them with your own eyes were two entirely different things. When Bruce walked through the gym doors, standing 5'7" and weighing maybe 60 kilograms soaking wet, Big Mike couldn't help but smirk. "This is the guy everybody's talking about." Big Mike's voice carried across the entire gym, causing several boxers to stop their training and look over. "Man, he looks like a strong wind would blow him away." The comment hung in the air like cigarette smoke. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the gym. The stuntman who had brought Bruce shifted uncomfortably, knowing his friend's reputation, but also knowing who Big Mike was. Bruce Lee said nothing. He simply smiled, that enigmatic smile that those who knew him recognized as something far more dangerous than anger. He walked slowly across the gym floor. His footsteps barely made a sound, even though the boards creaked under everyone else's weight. "I've heard about your gym," Bruce said. His voice was calm and measured, with a slight accent that somehow made every word sound more deliberate. "Muhammad Ali speaks of training here in the highest terms. I came to learn, to observe. I have great respect for boxers." Big Mike crossed his massive arms, his biceps straining against his undershirt. "That's real nice of you, little man. But this ain't a kung fu movie set. This is where real fighters train. We don't dance around with all that fancy stuff here." The temperature in the gym seemed to drop a few degrees. Every boxer had stopped what they were doing. Even the rhythmic thud of gloves against heavy bags had ceased. This was the moment fighters lived for, not the structured matches in the ring, but these unexpected confrontations where pride and reputation hung in the balance. Bruce's smile didn't waver, but something shifted in his eyes. Those who knew him well, and there were a few in that gym who had worked with him on film sets, recognized that look. It was the same expression he wore a moment before he moved, before he demonstrated something that left experienced martial artists speechless. I don't dance, Bruce said quietly. I never have. What I do is express the potential of the human body for explosive power. But I understand your skepticism. In your world, size matters. Weight classes exist for a reason. You've built your entire understanding of fighting around these principles. Big Mike uncrossed his arms, his jaw tightening. He wasn't used to being spoken to like this, especially not by someone who looked like they belonged in a library rather than a fight gym. You got something to say? Say it straight. I don't need a philosophy lesson. I'm saying that what you believe about fighting, about power, about mass, about advantage, it's incomplete. Bruce took another step forward. He was now within striking distance of Big Mike, close enough that the size difference became almost comical. The giant looked down at Bruce like a grizzly eyeing a particularly bold rabbit. Incomplete. Big Mike's laugh was sharp and humorless. Brother, I've been fighting since I was 12 years old. I've been in the ring with guys who could kill you with one punch. I've trained champions, and you're telling me I don't understand fighting. I'm telling you that you don't understand me. The words hung there, simple and undeniable. Someone at the back of the gym whispered, "Oh shit." Another boxer pulled out a chair, sitting down to watch. This was going to be either very entertaining or very ugly, possibly both. Big Mike's face darkened. His pride, already stung by Bruce's calm resistance, now demanded satisfaction. All right, little man, you want to prove something? You want to show me what I don't understand? Let's do this right now. You and me. We'll see how incomplete my understanding is when you're staring at the ceiling. Bruce nodded slowly, as if he had expected exactly this challenge. What are the conditions? Conditions? Big Mike laughed again, but this time with genuine amusement. No conditions. We go until somebody quits or can't continue. No rules, no referee, no time limit, just you and me and the truth. The stuntman who had brought Bruce stepped forward. His face was pale. Bruce, wait. Both Bruce and Big Mike said it simultaneously, in perfect unison. They looked at each other, and something passed between them. Mutual acknowledgement of where this was heading, and shared acceptance that it was now unavoidable. I have one condition, Bruce said. I won't hurt you seriously. I'll prove my point, but I won't send you to the hospital, your gym, your reputation. I respect those things. This is about education, not destruction. Big Mike's face went from dark to almost purple. The idea that this little man was offering him mercy, that he would pull his punches, that he would be gentle, it was the most insulting thing anyone had ever said to him in his own gym. You arrogant little... Big Mike started forward, his fist already drawing back. Wait. Bruce raised one hand, stopping the giant mid-stride with nothing but the gesture. Before we begin, I want everyone here to see this clearly. I want no confusion about what's about to happen. Everyone, pay attention. Bruce turned slowly, addressing the 15 or so boxers and trainers who had gathered in a loose circle around them. His voice carried across the gym with an authority unexpected for a man his size. I am about to demonstrate something that will seem impossible. Some of you will think it's a trick. Others will think Big Mike threw the fight. But I want you to watch carefully. Watch his eyes, his body, how he reacts. What you're about to see is not magic. It's not luck. It's simply what happens when someone understands the principles of energy transfer, timing, and the vulnerabilities of the human body. Big Mike was practically vibrating with rage now. You finished with your little speech? Because I'm about to shut that mouth of yours for good. Bruce turned back to him, and in that moment, something shifted in his posture. The philosophical teacher vanished, replaced by something primal and focused. His stance shifted almost imperceptibly. Weight distribution, muscles tensed, eyes narrowing to laser focus. "I'm ready," Bruce said. "Attack me with full power. Don't hold back. If you hold back, you'll regret it." What happened next has been debated, analyzed, and retold for decades. Big Mike Johnson was no dumb fighter. Despite his anger, despite his wounded pride, he was a trained boxer with over 20 years of experience. He didn't lunge wildly forward. He moved forward with purpose. His left hand extended in a proper jab, his right hand cocked and ready. His footwork was solid despite his size. He threw the jab, a piston-like movement that had broken noses and ended fights. He was fast for a man his size, faster than most people would expect. Bruce Lee simply wasn't there anymore. He moved, not backward, not sideways, but somehow through the punch, slipping inside Big Mike's guard, with a motion so fluid it looked choreographed. But it wasn't choreography. It was something else entirely. What happened in the next 11 seconds burned itself into the memory of everyone present. Bruce's right hand, open, not clenched, struck Big Mike's solar plexus with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a side of beef. The strike was so precise, so perfectly placed, that Big Mike's entire body seemed to freeze mid-motion. His eyes widened. His mouth opened in a silent gasp, and every ounce of air escaped his lungs in one explosive wheeze. But Bruce wasn't finished. Before Big Mike could even register what had happened, Bruce's left leg swept low, hooking behind the giant's lead leg. It wasn't a powerful kick. It didn't need to be. It was a matter of physics and timing. With Big Mike's weight committed forward from his failed jab and his breathing completely disrupted by the solar plexus strike, his base was already compromised. The sweep barely looked like it had any force behind it, but Big Mike's massive frame began to tip backward like a felled tree. Bruce's right hand, the same hand that had struck the solar plexus, now pressed against Big Mike's chest, not pushing hard, but guiding, redirecting the giant's own momentum against himself. 140 kilograms of muscle crashed onto the mat with a thunderous impact that shook the entire gym. Dust rose from the mat. A ring rope vibrated somewhere. A water bottle tipped over and rolled across the floor, the only sound in the absolute silence that followed. Big Mike lay on his back, gasping like a fish thrown ashore. His eyes stared at the ceiling in shock and confusion. He tried to sit up, managed to raise himself onto his elbows, then fell back, still unable to draw a full breath. Bruce Lee stood over him, not in triumph, but with something that looked almost like concern. He knelt beside the fallen giant. "Breathe slowly," Bruce said, his voice gentle now, the warrior replaced by the teacher. "Your diaphragm is in spasm. It will pass in a moment. You're not seriously injured. Just breathe." One of the boxers, a young heavyweight who had been training in the corner, looked at his watch, his hand trembling slightly. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "That was 11 seconds from first move to now. 11 seconds. The gym remained frozen in that surreal tableau. 15 hardened fighters, men who had seen countless matches and back-alley brawls, standing in complete silence, processing what their eyes had just witnessed. It was the kind of silence that follows a car accident. That moment when the brain is still trying to catch up with reality. Big Mike finally managed to take a full breath, color slowly returning to his face. Bruce helped him sit up, supporting the much larger man with surprising gentleness. The gesture was somehow more devastating than the takedown itself. This little man treating the fearsome gym owner like a post-operative patient. What the hell? Big Mike's voice came out as a raspy whisper. What the hell was that? That was the Wing Chun concept of centerline control, combined with the Jeet Kune Do principle of interception, Bruce said, still kneeling beside him. You made a mistake when you threw the jab. In committing to it, you created an opening. I entered through that opening and disrupted your structure at its most vulnerable point. Your breath. When your breath went, your strength went. When your strength went, your balance went. The rest was just gravity, doing what gravity does. Big Mike stared at him, still trying to process, but barely. I didn't even see you move. 1 second I'm throwing the jab, the next I'm looking at the ceiling. That's because you were focusing on where I was, not where I was going to be. Bruce stood, offering his hand to help Big Mike up. Fighting isn't about being in places. It's about moving between places faster than your opponent can track. It's about understanding that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, but the most effective distance is often the one your opponent doesn't see coming. Big Mike took Bruce's hand and pulled himself up, swaying slightly as he found his balance. He looked around his gym, at his fighters, at a world that had suddenly become unfamiliar. Everything he had built his understanding on, weight, strength, size, advantage, had just been obliterated in 11 seconds. I've sparred with Muhammad Ali, Big Mike said slowly, his voice still rough. I've been in the ring with Joe Frazier. I've trained with some of the most dangerous men on the planet, and not one of them, not one, could do what you just did. Bruce smiled, but there was no arrogance in it. They're boxers. They're bound by rules, weight classes, a structure that both enables and limits. What I do exists outside those structures. It's not better or worse. It's just different. A great boxer in his weight class could destroy me under boxing rules. But what just happened? That wasn't boxing. That was reality. The young heavyweight, who had timed the encounter, stepped forward. His face was a mixture of awe and confusion. Mr. Lee, I have to ask, could you do that to Ali, the real champion? Bruce's expression became more serious. He looked toward the gym entrance, as if checking to see if anyone was there. Muhammad Ali is one of the greatest athletes who has ever lived. His speed, his instincts, his ability to read opponents. These are once-in-a-generation gifts. Could I beat him in a no-rules street fight? Maybe. Could I last even 1 round with him in a boxing ring? Absolutely not. We operate in different worlds. But you just put Big Mike down like he was nobody, another boxer protested, and Mike was in there with Ali. Mike landed punches on the champion. In a controlled environment, with rules, with gloves, with a referee, Bruce replied. What just happened had none of those things. I didn't fight Big Mike. I exploited a moment of vulnerability that existed for perhaps half a second. That's what I train for. Those half-second windows that most people don't even know exist. Big Mike had regained his equilibrium. Now, however, his pride was still processing the shock. He walked over to a folding chair near the ring and sat down heavily, accepting a towel and water bottle from one of his trainers. For a long moment, he just sat there, wiping his face, staring at the mat floor where he had landed. Then he started to laugh. It wasn't a bitter laugh, or a mocking one. It was the genuine laughter of a man who had just experienced something so far beyond his expectations that the only appropriate response was to surrender to its absurdity. You know what's crazy, Big Mike said, looking at Bruce. I still don't fully understand what you did. My mind knows it happened. My body sure as hell knows it happened, but I can't replay it in my head. It's like trying to remember a dream after you wake up. I remember throwing the jab, and then I remember lying on my back. Everything in between is a blur. That's because your conscious mind can't process information that fast, Bruce explained, stepping closer. Your nervous system experienced it. Your body felt it. But the part of your brain that creates narrative understanding was too slow. That's why training is so important. Not to think faster, but to react without thinking at all. One of the older trainers, a gray-haired man named Ray, who had been in the boxing business for 40 years, spoke up from beside the heavy bags. I saw it, or at least I think I saw it. Bruce, you slipped inside his guard before his jab was fully extended. That shouldn't be possible. Human reaction time shouldn't allow for that. You're right. Reaction time doesn't allow for it. Bruce nodded. That's why I didn't react. I anticipated. I've studied thousands of boxers. I know how they think, how they set up their punches, those tiny micro-movements that happen before the actual strike. Big Mike telegraphed his jab with a slight drop of his shoulder. Maybe a quarter inch, maybe less. Most people would never notice it, but I've trained myself to see it. I was moving before he moved, because I knew what he was going to do before he fully committed to it. The gym was still processing this. These were men who had spent their entire lives in combat sports, yet they were listening to Bruce Lee like students in a classroom, trying to grasp concepts that existed just beyond their understanding. Big Mike stood up slowly, testing his legs, rotating his shoulders. I gotta know something, and I want you to be honest. When you hit me in the solar plexus, that didn't feel like a regular punch. It felt like you hit me from the inside somehow, like the impact went through my body instead of into it. What was that? Bruce's eyes lit up. This was clearly a question he enjoyed answering. What you felt was the principle of the one-inch punch, but applied with an open hand for control rather than damage. Most people think power comes from big wind-ups. They're wrong. Power comes from the explosive release of tension over minimal distance. I generated that power not from my arm or even my torso, but from my entire body, from my feet, through my legs, up my spine, and out through my hand, all concentrated into a single point of contact, no larger than a coin. He demonstrated on a heavy bag, placing his hand against it with barely any space between his fist and the leather. Watch. Without drawing his hand back, without any visible wind-up, Bruce's body seemed to pulse, and the heavy bag, a 150-pound monster that barely moved when grown men pounded on it, snapped back violently on its chain. The impact echoed through the gym like a gunshot. Several fighters jumped, startled. One let out an involuntary curse. That's not possible, Ray muttered. That violates every principle of leverage and power generation. It doesn't violate them, Bruce corrected gently. It utilizes them in ways that Western boxing hasn't explored. Your boxing is magnificent. It's sophisticated. It's effective. It's been perfected over centuries. But it's also limited by its own rules and structures. What I'm showing you exists in the spaces between those rules. The gym door suddenly opened, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Every head turned toward the entrance, where Muhammad Ali himself stood, silhouetted against the afternoon sun streaming in from the street. He wore a casual tracksuit, a gym bag slung over his shoulder, but his presence filled the room like electricity. Big Mike, Ali's voice carried across the gym in that familiar, playful cadence. I heard something going on from half a block away. What's all this commotion about? Somebody finally knocked some sense into... He stopped mid-sentence as his eyes fell on Bruce Lee. Then he saw Big Mike sitting on the chair, still recovering, a towel around his neck. Ali's sharp eyes, those legendary eyes that could read an opponent's intent before the opponent knew it themselves. took in the scene immediately. The circle of silent fighters, the tension in the air, the way everyone was looking at Bruce. Well, 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 Ali said, a slow smile spreading across his face. Bruce Lee in Big Mike's gym, and Big Mike looking like he just went 12 rounds with Joe Frazier. He stepped further into the gym, his movements graceful despite his size. Somebody want to tell the champion what he just missed? Big Mike stood up, his dignity returning now that he had an audience with someone who might actually understand. This man just put me on my back in 11 seconds. 11 seconds, and I still don't know how he did it. Ali stopped walking. His expression shifted from amused to intensely curious. 11 seconds. Mike, you been drinking before training again? I'm serious, champ. I threw my best jab, and next thing I know, I'm looking at the ceiling, trying to remember how to breathe. Ali turned to Bruce, studying him with fresh appreciation. The two men had met briefly before at a martial arts demonstration, but this was different. This was Ali seeing Bruce not as a movie star or a martial artist, but as a fighter who had just done something that demanded respect. Is that true? Ali asked Bruce directly. You put Big Mike down in 11 seconds? Bruce met his gaze steadily. I demonstrated a principle. Big Mike was kind enough to be the subject of the demonstration. Kind? Big Mike snorted. Man, I challenged him. I thought it was all talk and fancy moves. Turns out, I was the one who didn't know what he was talking about. Ali's eyes glinted with that competitive fire that had made him the greatest. He set his gym bag down, slowly, deliberately. You know, Bruce, we've talked about this before. You and me. What would happen if we ever fought for real? People ask me about it all the time. Champ, could you beat Bruce Lee? They say. And I always tell them, in the ring with boxing rules, I'd kill him. But on the street, no rules. He paused. I usually just smile and change the subject. The gym had gone completely silent again. This was the conversation people would talk about for years if they were lucky enough to witness it. Bruce smiled, that enigmatic expression that revealed nothing. You're smart to change the subject, Muhammad, because the truth is complicated and people don't like complicated truths. They want simple answers. Who would win? As if fighting were that simple. As if there weren't 1,000 variables that could change the outcome. But you just put Big Mike down in 11 seconds, Ali pressed, circling slightly, his body language unconsciously shifting into assessment mode. Mike ain't a small man. Mike trained with me. Mike can handle himself. And you dropped him like a bad habit. I caught him at the right moment, Bruce said modestly. He made a mistake in his attack. I intercepted him. The circumstances were ideal for what I do. Different circumstances, different outcome. Show me. The words hung in the air like both a challenge and an invitation. Show you what? Bruce asked, though he clearly knew what Ali meant. Show me what you did to Mike, not on him, on me. I want to feel what he felt. I want to understand how you move like that. Ali's face was serious now, the playfulness gone. I'm not challenging you to a fight. I'm asking you, as one martial artist to another, show me your art. Bruce Lee studied Muhammad Ali's face for a long moment, reading the sincerity there. This wasn't about ego or proving superiority. This was about two masters of different disciplines seeking to understand each other's craft. It was a rare moment of pure curiosity between warriors. If I show you, you have to promise me something, Bruce said quietly. What's that? You have to promise not to try to counter. Your instincts are too good, your reflexes too fast. If you try to defend or counter, someone could actually get hurt. Probably me. Bruce's honesty was disarming. What I'm about to demonstrate requires your cooperation, not submission, but cooperation, like a dance partner, not an opponent. Ali considered this, then nodded slowly. All right, I'll be your dance partner. But I'm watching everything. I want to see how you do what you do. They moved to the center of the gym, the circle of fighters widening to give them space. Big Mike had recovered enough to stand, leaning against a ring post. His arms were crossed, eager to see if the world champion would experience the same disorientation he had. Throw a jab at me, Bruce instructed, but throw it slowly, maybe half speed. I'm going to show you the entry point, the moment of interception. Ali nodded and threw a slow-motion jab. His legendary left hand extended toward Bruce's face with exaggerated slowness. Bruce moved with equal slowness, slipping inside the punch. His hand rose toward Ali's solar plexus. Here, Bruce said, stopping with his palm resting gently against Ali's abdomen. This is the target, the solar plexus, specifically the celiac plexus. It's a bundle of nerves that, when struck correctly, sends a signal to your diaphragm to spasm involuntarily. You can't fight it. You can't power through it. Your body simply stops listening to your brain for a few seconds. I've been hit in the body before, Ali said. Joe Frazier damn near broke my ribs, but I never felt what Mike described. That's because most body punches rely on blunt force trauma. Breaking ribs, bruising organs, causing pain. What I do is different. It's about disrupting function, not causing damage. Bruce paused. May I demonstrate at quarter power? Ali's eyebrows rose. Quarter power of what? What put Mike on the ground? Yes. Hell, why not? I didn't come here to train soft. But there was a flash of uncertainty in Ali's eyes, something rarely seen on the face of the most confident athlete in the world. Bruce reset his position, his hand again resting against Ali's solar plexus. Breathe normally. Don't tense up. The more you tense, the worse it will be. Then, with no visible wind-up, Bruce's hand seemed to pulse. It wasn't a push. It wasn't a punch in the conventional sense. It was as if a small explosion occurred beneath his palm, energy traveling through Ali's body rather than into it. Muhammad Ali, the man who had taken the hardest shots from the most powerful heavyweights in history, made a sound that was half gasp, half cough. His hands flew to his midsection. His body doubled forward involuntarily. He stumbled back 2 steps. His face was a mask of shock. Jesus, Ali wheezed, fighting for breath. What the? He gasped. That was quarter power? The gym erupted in excited chatter. If anyone had doubted what happened to Big Mike, those doubts were now obliterated. They had just watched Muhammad Ali, the greatest, react to a strike that barely looked like a strike. Bruce stepped forward, concerned. Breathe slowly. It will pass. Ali waved him off, straightening up gradually, his breath returning to normal after about 30 seconds. When he finally looked at Bruce again, there was something new in his eyes. Not quite fear, but a deep respect, bordering on awe. This ain't fighting, Ali said, his voice still slightly strained. This is something else entirely. It's like knowing a secret about the human body that nobody else knows. It's not a secret, Bruce replied. It's simply knowledge that most people haven't explored. Your boxing is magnificent, Muhammad. In your element, under your rules, you're unstoppable. What I do is just different. Not better. Not worse. Different. Ali shook his head slowly, a rueful smile spreading across his face. Man, people are going to ask me about this. They're going to say, Champ, did Bruce Lee really hurt you? With one touch? And I'm going to have to tell them, yeah. He paused. My pride's going to hate that. Then tell them the truth, Bruce suggested. Tell them that different martial arts serve different purposes. Tell them that a boxer in a boxing ring is like a shark in water, supreme in his element. But take that same shark and put him on land, and suddenly, different rules apply. Neither the shark nor the land animal is better. They're just adapted to different environments.